The USS Endeavour moved through the dark space like a giant metal whale, its hull gleaming under the light of the distant star. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, looking out at the blue and green planet that would become humanity's first home beyond Earth. After 3 years of travel, they had finally reached Kepler 442b, and Jake felt both excitement and worry in his chest. "Captain, we're picking up signals from the planet," said Lieutenant Alex Turner from his station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tried to make sense of the strange patterns coming through their systems. "It's not natural, sir. Someone is down there." Jake nodded and walked over to where Dr. Lisa Carter was studying her screens. She was the ship's expert on alien life, and her eyes were wide with wonder as she looked at the data. "What do you think, Doc? Are we looking at our first neighbors?" Lisa pushed her glasses up her nose and smiled. "The signals are definitely made by intelligent beings. They're using math patterns that show they understand complex ideas. They're trying to talk to us, Captain." Commander Kate Sullivan, Jake's second in command, stepped forward. "Should we respond?" "We don't know if they're friendly or not," Jake thought for a moment. The ship carried 2,000 people who were counting on him to make the right choice. In the cargo holds below, families waited to start new lives. Children played in the common areas while their parents prepared for a future on this new world. And in the special sections of the ship, Earth's animals waited too. Dogs barked and played, cats napped in sunny spots, and horses moved restlessly. In their stalls, send a basic math sequence, Jake decided. "Let them know we're here and we want to talk." The response came faster than anyone expected. The alien signals suddenly became stronger and more complex. Lisa worked hard to understand them, and after 2 hours, she had good news. "They call themselves Zephyrians," she said, her voice full of excitement. "They want to meet us. They're sending coordinates for a meeting place on the planet's surface." Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Finally, some good news. Kate, get a team ready. We're going to make history today." But as they prepared for the first meeting between humans and aliens, strange things began to happen. The Zephyrian signals suddenly became different. Instead of welcome messages, they started sending what looked like warnings. "Captain," Alex called out, his voice tight with worry. "They're scanning our ship. Deep scans, looking at everything we have on board." Lisa frowned as she watched the scans move through their systems. "They're focusing on the animal sections. They seem very interested in our dogs." Jake didn't understand why aliens would care about dogs. Rex, his own German shepherd, was sleeping peacefully in his quarters. The dog was gentle and loyal like all the dogs on the ship. They were brought along to help people feel better during the long journey and to help start life on the new planet. The Zephyrian signal suddenly stopped, and for a long moment the bridge was quiet. Then new messages started coming in, and Lisa's face went pale as she read them. "Captain, they're asking us to remove all predators from our ship before they'll meet with us. They specifically mention our dogs? They're calling them dangerous monsters." Jake stared at her in disbelief. "Monsters? They're talking about our dogs? Rex wouldn't hurt a fly unless someone threatened me. I don't think they understand what dogs really are," Lisa said slowly. "To them, dogs might look like wild predators. They don't know that we've lived with dogs for thousands of years." Kate shook her head. "We can't just get rid of our dogs? They're part of our families. The children love them. They help people stay calm and happy." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. The dogs were not just animals to the people on his ship. They were friends, helpers, and family members. Old Mr. Peterson in Section C had a small terrier named Buddy. That helped him with his bad heart. Jenny Martinez, one of the engineers, had a golden retriever called Sunny that helped her daughter sleep at night. There were working dogs that helped with security, therapy dogs that helped sick people feel better, and family pets that brought joy to everyone. "Send them a message," Jake said. "Tell them our dogs are not dangerous. They're domesticated animals that live with us peacefully." Lisa worked on the translation, but the response that came back was even more alarming. The Zephyrians sent detailed information about what their scans had found. According to their data, the dogs had powerful jaws that could crush bones, sharp teeth designed for tearing meat, and pack-hunting instincts that made them deadly predators. "They're not wrong about the physical facts," Lisa said quietly. "Dogs are descended from wolves. They do have strong jaws and sharp teeth, but they don't understand that dogs chose to live with us. They don't know about the bond between humans and dogs." Alex looked up from his station. "Captain, they're giving us an ultimatum. Either we remove all dogs from our ship, or they won't. Let us land on their planet. They're saying we can't bring biological weapons into their space." Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Biological weapons? They think our dogs are weapons? The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. The Zephyrians controlled the star system. If they didn't allow the Endeavor to land, the human colonists would have to find another planet, which could take years or decades. But asking the crew to give up their dogs was like asking them to give up their children. "There has to be another way," Kate said. "We can show them that dogs are safe. We can prove that they're not dangerous." But as Jake looked out at the planet below, he wondered if it was possible. How could they explain thousands of years of friendship between humans and dogs to beings who saw only monsters? How could they make the Zephyrians understand that the creatures they feared were actually humanity's best friends? "Set up a video call," Jake decided. "If we can't make them understand with words, maybe we can show them what dogs really are." As the crew prepared for the most important conversation in human history, dogs throughout the ship continued their normal lives. They played with children, comforted worried adults, and slept peacefully in their beds. They had no idea that their presence might determine the future of humanity among the stars. The first contact between humans and aliens would depend on whether two very different species could understand each other's relationship with Earth's oldest companions. The video call with the Zephyrians was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The alien beings appeared on the main screen as tall, thin creatures with soft blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Their leader, Ambassador Veltar, spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes, but the translation device made his words clear and serious. "We have studied your biological scans carefully," Veltar said, his long fingers moving gracefully as he spoke. "The creatures you call dogs are apex predators with killing capabilities that frighten our entire species. We cannot allow such monsters near our peaceful world." Jake tried to stay calm, but frustration was building inside him. "Ambassador, I understand your concerns, but dogs are not monsters. They're our companions. They live with us in harmony." Dr. Ben Hayes, the ship's psychologist, stepped forward. He had been studying human-animal relationships for years and understood better than anyone how important dogs were to human mental health. "Ambassador Veltar, may I explain something about our relationship with these animals?" The Zephyrian leader nodded, though his large eyes showed fear and confusion. Ben began to speak about the thousands of years that humans and dogs had lived together. He explained how dogs helped humans hunt, protected their homes, and provided emotional support. But as he talked, the Zephyrians seemed to become more worried, not less. "You speak of hunting and protection," Veltar said, his voice shaking slightly. "This confirms our fears. These creatures are weapons that you have trained to kill for you." Dr. Lisa Carter joined the conversation, bringing up scientific data about dog behavior. "Ambassador, dogs have been changed by thousands of years of living with humans. They're not the same as their wild ancestors. They're gentle and loyal." But the Zephyrians had their own data, and it painted a very different picture. They showed detailed biological scans of the dogs on the Endeavor. The scans revealed jaw muscles that could exert tremendous pressure, teeth designed for tearing flesh, and brain structures that showed pack-hunting instincts. To the Zephyrians, who had evolved from gentle, tree-dwelling creatures that ate only plants, these features were terrifying. "Your scans show creatures capable of crushing bones with their jaws," Veltar said, his voice filled with horror. "They have the hunting instincts of pack predators?" How can you say they are not dangerous? Kate Sullivan tried a different approach. Ambassador, we have children on our ship who play with these dogs every day. They're perfectly safe. But this only made things worse. The Zephyrians interpreted this as humans using their children to train the predators from a young age, making them even more dangerous. When Kate mentioned that dogs were protective of human children, the aliens saw this as evidence that the creatures were being programmed to be aggressive. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, who handled the military working dogs, was asked to demonstrate how well trained the dogs were. She brought her German Shepherd, Rex, into the video call area. Rex was a beautiful dog with alert eyes and a calm demeanor. When Maria gave him commands, he followed them perfectly, sitting, staying, and even playing dead on command. The Zephyrians watched in terror as Rex demonstrated his obedience. When Maria commanded him to attack a training dummy, Rex grabbed it and shook it vigorously. The demonstration was meant to show control and training, but to the Zephyrians, it looked like humans directing a monster to kill. 3 Zephyrian observers had to leave the video call because they became physically ill from fear. Veltar himself was shaking as he watched Rex's demonstration. This confirms our worst fears, he said. You travel with trained killers that obey your every command. These are biological weapons. The situation got worse when other dogs on the ship began to react to the tension. Dogs are very sensitive to human emotions, and they could sense that their human companions were upset and worried. As the video call continued, dogs throughout the ship became more alert and protective when a small golden retriever named Buddy walked into the video call area, wagging his tail and panting happily. The Zephyrians reacted as if a monster had entered the room. Buddy's simple tail wagging was interpreted as aggressive behavior, and his panting was seen as a predator preparing to attack. Look at how the creature displays its weapons, Veltar said, pointing at Buddy's teeth, which were visible as he panted. It shows no fear, only aggression. This is a killing machine. Dr. Hayes tried to explain that tail wagging meant happiness and that panting was just how dogs cooled themselves, but the Zephyrians didn't believe him. Their cultural understanding of animal behavior was completely different from human understanding. In their world, showing teeth always meant aggression, and confident behavior always meant a threat. The conversation continued for hours, but each attempt to show the gentle nature of dogs only made the Zephyrians more afraid. When they learned that humans actually shared their homes with dogs, letting them sleep in their beds and eat from their tables, the Zephyrians were horrified. They began to see humans as a species that had formed an alliance with apex predators, making them extremely dangerous. We have contacted the Galactic Council, Veltar finally announced. We are reporting that your species travels with biological weapons and cannot be trusted. You must remove these creatures from your ship immediately, or we will consider your presence an act of war. Jake felt his heart sink. The Galactic Council was the governing body for peaceful species in this part of the galaxy. If they branded humans as dangerous, it would mean the end of humanity's expansion into space. Earth's overpopulation and resource problems had made colonization necessary for survival. Ambassador, please, Jake said desperately. Give us more time. Let us prove that dogs are not dangerous. We can show you how they interact with our people, but Veltar was firm. We have seen enough. Your creatures are monsters, and we will not allow them in our space. You have 1 day to decide. Remove the predators or leave our system forever. As the video call ended, Jake looked around at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. How could they choose between their mission to save humanity and the dogs that had been their companions for thousands of years? The dogs had no idea that their presence might determine the future of the human race among the stars dotted in the corridors of the ship. Children played with puppies, elderly people found comfort in gentle old dogs, and working dogs continued their jobs of keeping everyone safe. The creatures the Zephyrians saw as monsters were simply being themselves, loving and loyal to the humans who cared for them. Jake knew that the next day would bring one of the hardest decisions he had ever had to make. The emergency meeting in the Endeavor's main conference room was filled with tension and difficult choices. Jake sat at the head of the table, looking at the faces of his senior staff. Each person in the room understood that they were facing a decision that would change the course of human history. Earth Command has sent their response, Kate said, her voice heavy with disappointment. They're ordering us to comply with Zephyrian demands. We are to remove all dogs from the ship immediately. Dr. Hayes slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. We're talking about family members, not cargo that can be simply dumped. Some of these dogs have been with their families for years. Children have grown up with them. Alex looked up from his communication station. There's more bad news. The USS Discovery is approaching our position. They're carrying even more Earth animals, including a full veterinary research team with dozens of dogs. Jake felt his stomach drop. Captain Steve Miller's research vessel was supposed to arrive next month with additional colonists and animals to help establish the new settlement. If the Zephyrians were afraid of the dogs on the Endeavor, they would be terrified of the Discovery's much larger animal population. We need to warn them, Jake said. Tell Steve to stay away from the planet until we figure this out. But it was too late. The Zephyrian detection systems had already spotted the incoming ship, and their scans revealed what they saw as a massive invasion force carrying biological weapons. Within hours, Zephyrian warships surrounded both human vessels, their weapons powered up and ready to fire. They think we're planning to attack them, Kate said, reading the angry messages from the Zephyrian fleet. They believe we brought a second ship full of monsters to overwhelm their defenses. The situation was getting worse by the hour. Commander Paul Johnson, Earth's strategic advisor, joined the conversation through quantum communication. His message was clear and harsh. Captain Morrison, you have created a diplomatic disaster. The Zephyrians are threatening to destroy both ships unless you immediately surrender all biological weapons. Jake felt the weight of 2,000 lives on his shoulders. The colonists trusted him to lead them to safety, but now their future was threatened by the very animals that brought them comfort and joy. Dr. Rachel Green, the veterinarian aboard the Discovery, requested an emergency meeting with Jake and his team. Her face appeared on the communication screen, and she looked both worried and determined. Captain Morrison, I've been studying the Zephyrian planet while we've been in orbit, she said. Something strange is happening down there. Their agricultural systems are failing, and they're facing a serious ecological crisis. Lisa leaned forward, interested. What kind of crisis? Rachel pulled up data on her screen. Invasive plant species are taking over their farmlands. These plants are growing faster than anything they've ever seen, and they're choking out the native vegetation. The Zephyrians are struggling to feed their population. Jake didn't understand why this mattered. That's unfortunate, but how does it help us with our dog problem? Dr. Green smiled for the first time in days. Captain, Earth's animals might be the solution to their problem. Dogs have incredible senses that could help track and identify invasive species. They could help the Zephyrians save their planet. Lisa's eyes lit up with understanding. Of course, dogs can smell things that our instruments can't detect. They could find the source of the invasive plants and help track their spread. But Jake was skeptical. How do we convince the Zephyrians to let our monsters help them? They're ready to shoot us out of space. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts from the ship's sensors. Lieutenant Turner called from the bridge with alarming news. Captain, all the dogs on the ship are acting strange. They're restless, whining, and they won't calm down. It's like they're sensing something we can't. Jake and his team rushed to the bridge to see what was happening. Throughout the ship, dogs were exhibiting behavior that their handlers had never seen before. They were pacing, whimpering, and staring at the viewports that showed the planet. Below, even the calmest, most well-trained dogs seemed agitated and worried. This started about an hour ago, Turner explained. Every dog on the ship began acting this way at exactly the same time. The handlers can't figure out what's wrong. Dr. Hayes was studying the reports from different sections of the ship. It's not just the dogs. The horses are nervous too, and even the cats are hiding. Something is frightening all our animals. Rachel's voice came through the communication system from the Discovery. Captain, we're seeing the same thing here. Our animals are all acting like they're sensing danger, but our instruments don't show anything unusual. Jake looked out at the Zephyrian planet, wondering what could be causing this reaction. The planet looked peaceful and green from space, but their animals were telling them that something was wrong. Could it be the Zephyrians themselves? Kate asked. Maybe the animals can sense the aliens' fear and aggression. But Lisa shook her head. Animal behavior doesn't work that way. They're not reacting to emotions from space. They're sensing something. Physical, something real. As they debated the cause of the animals' strange behavior, more bad news arrived. The Zephyrian fleet had moved closer to both human ships, and their weapons were charging to full power. Ambassador Veltar's final message was short and clear. You have 1 hour to remove all biological weapons from your vessels and prepare to leave our system. If you refuse, we will consider you an invading force and respond accordingly. Jake knew that Zephyrian weapons were far more advanced than anything humans had. If they decided to fight, both ships would be destroyed, along with all the colonists who had trusted him to lead them to a new life. We need to find out what's scaring our animals, Jake said firmly. I have a feeling it's connected to everything that's happening here. Dr. Green agreed to work with Lisa to study the animals' behavior more closely. They had less than an hour to figure out what was causing the problem and somehow convince the Zephyrians that their dogs weren't monsters, but potential allies. As the deadline approached, Jake made a decision that would either save them all or doom them forever. He ordered both ships to move closer to the planet despite the Zephyrian warnings. If their animals were sensing something important, they needed to find out what it was. The Zephyrian fleet immediately responded by powering up their weapons to maximum. The next few minutes would determine whether first contact between humans and aliens would end in friendship or in the destruction of humanity's first colony mission. In the animal sections of both ships, dogs continued to pace and whine, trying to warn their human companions about a danger that no one else could detect. Chief Engineer Don Brooks was not the kind of man who scared easily. He had worked on starships for 20 years and had seen all kinds of problems, but the readings on his instruments made his hands shake as he called the bridge. Captain Morrison. You need to see this, Dan said, his voice tight with worry. I'm detecting massive movement under the surface of the Zephyrian planet. Something huge is moving down there, and it's getting bigger. Jake rushed to the engineering section with Lisa and Kate following close behind. Dan's screens showed seismic readings that looked like nothing they had ever seen before. The underground movement was not random but seemed to follow patterns, as if something intelligent was controlling it. How big are we talking about? Jake asked, studying the data. Dan wiped sweat from his forehead. Captain, this thing extends under most of the planet's surface. It's like a massive network of tunnels and chambers. Whatever is down there, it's enormous. Dr. Amy Watson, the ship's expert on plant life, joined them in the engineering section. She had been studying the Zephyrian planet's vegetation and had discovered something alarming. Captain, I think I know what's happening. The invasive plants that are destroying the Zephyrian agriculture are not really plants at all. She pulled up her research on a nearby screen. These organisms are actually parts of something much larger. They're like tentacles or feelers that extend up from underground. The entire planet is being consumed by a single massive creature. Jake stared at the data in disbelief. You're saying the whole planet is infected by one giant organism? Amy nodded grimly. It's been growing underground for decades, maybe centuries. The Zephyrians thought they were dealing with invasive plants, but they were actually watching their planet being eaten from below. Lisa suddenly understood why all the animals on both ships were acting so strangely. The dogs can sense it. Their enhanced senses are picking up something that our instruments missed. They're trying to warn us about the real danger. As if to confirm her words, Rex, Maria's German shepherd, began barking urgently from the animal section, whose barks were joined by dozens of other dogs throughout the ship. The sound was not random but seemed to follow a pattern. As if the dogs were trying to communicate something important, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Foster, who was piloting a small scout ship near the planet's surface, suddenly called in with panic. In his voice, "Captain, something is happening down here. The ground is moving and plants are growing at impossible speeds. It's like the whole planet is coming alive." Jake ordered the main screen to show Ryan's position. What they saw made everyone on the bridge freeze in horror. Massive tentacle-like structures were bursting from the ground, each one as tall as a building. They moved with purpose, reaching toward the sky like the arms of some ancient monster. "Get out of there, Ryan," Jake ordered. "Return to the ship immediately." But before Ryan could respond, one of the giant tentacles wrapped around his scout ship. The small vessel disappeared into what looked like a massive flower bud. But Jake knew it was actually a mouth. The Zephyrian fleet, which had been threatening the human ships, suddenly turned their weapons toward their own planet. Ambassador Veltar's voice came through the communication system, filled with terror and desperation. "The ancient enemy has awakened," Veltar said, his voice shaking. "We thought it was dead, but it was only sleeping. It has been feeding on our world for generations, and now it is strong enough to surface." Jake realized that the Zephyrians had been facing this threat for much longer than anyone knew. "Ambassador, what is this thing? How do we fight it?" Veltar's response was filled with hopelessness. "We call it the Verdant Devourer. It has destroyed 17 worlds in our galaxy. It burrows into a planet's core and slowly consumes everything from within. When it is finished feeding, it moves to the next world." Dr. Watson studied the creature's behavior through the ship's sensors. "It's like a parasite, but on a planetary scale. It uses the surface vegetation to gather energy while it grows underground." The Zephyrians never realized that their agricultural problems were actually signs of a much bigger threat. The situation on the planet's surface was getting worse by the minute. More tentacles were emerging from the ground, and they were attacking the Zephyrian cities. The alien population was fleeing in panic, but they had nowhere to go. "We have to help them," Jake said, making a decision that would change everything. "Kate, contact the Zephyrian fleet. Tell them we want to work together to fight this thing." But Veltar was confused by the offer. "Your biological weapons cannot help us against the Devourer. It is too powerful for any living creature to defeat." Jake looked at the dogs throughout his ship, who were still barking and trying to warn everyone about the danger. "Ambassador, our dogs are not weapons, they're partners. They can sense things we cannot see or hear. They knew this creature was here before any of our instruments detected it." Lisa stepped forward with an idea. "The dogs might be able to help us map the creature's underground network. If we can find its central nervous system or its main body, we might be able to damage it." Maria Rodriguez, who had been listening to the conversation, brought Rex to the bridge. The German shepherd was alert and focused, his nose twitching as he smelled something that humans could not detect. "Rex has been trying to tell us something all day," Maria said. "He keeps looking toward specific parts of the planet and whining. I think he can smell the creature's main body." Jake made a decision that would either save both species or doom them all. "Ambassador Veltar, we propose an alliance. Our dogs can help track this creature, and your advanced weapons can help us destroy it. But we need to work together." The Zephyrian leader was quiet for a long moment. His people were dying on the planet below, and his fleet's weapons were not powerful enough to stop the Verdant Devourer. Finally he spoke. "We accept your offer, humans. But if your creatures prove to be a threat to my people, we will destroy them along with the Devourer." Jake nodded. "Understood. But I think you're about to learn what we've known for thousands of years. Sometimes the things that look like monsters are actually the ones trying to save you." As both fleets prepared for battle against the real enemy, the dogs on the human ships continued their warnings. They had been trying to protect everyone from the beginning, but now everyone would finally understand what they had been sensing all along. The battle for the Zephyrian planet began at dawn. Admiral Claire Thompson had arrived with a full Earth fleet, bringing 30 ships and hundreds of trained military dogs. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as human and Zephyrian forces worked together for the first time in history. This is incredible, Admiral Thompson said to Jake over the communication link. 6 months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're fighting alongside them to save their world. Jake nodded as he watched the combined fleet move into position. The dogs knew something was wrong before any of us did. If we had listened to them sooner, we might have prevented some of this damage. On the planet's surface, the verdant devourer was fully awake now. Massive tentacles covered with thorns and teeth stretched toward the sky, while underground roots spread like a web beneath the cities. The creature had been feeding on the planet for so long that it was now strong enough to fight back against its attackers. Master Sergeant Tony Garcia, the military's best dog trainer, was working with a team of Zephyrian soldiers. At first, the aliens had been terrified of his German shepherd, Max, but desperation had forced them to overcome their fear. The dog is detecting the creature's neural pathways, Tony explained to Zephyrian Field Commander Calandra. Max can smell the electrical signals that the devourer uses to control its different parts. Calandra watched nervously as Max sniffed the air and then began moving toward a specific area of the battlefield. The dog's nose twitched as he followed a scent trail that led to what looked like an ordinary hill. There, Tony said, pointing to where Max had stopped. The dog says there's a major nerve center under that hill. If we can destroy it, we can cut off the creature's control of this entire region. Calandra ordered her weapons team to target the hill. When the Zephyrian energy beams hit the ground, the hill exploded upward, revealing a massive brain-like structure covered in pulsing veins. The verdant devourer's scream of pain could be heard across the entire planet. It worked, Calandra said in amazement. The creature is actually reacting to the damage. Your dog found its weakness. Similar scenes were playing out across the planet as human Zephyrian teams used dogs to locate the creature's vital organs. Rex, Maria's German shepherd, had formed an unlikely partnership with a young Zephyrian soldier named Zenkar. At first, Zenkar had fainted when Rex approached him, but now they worked together like they had been partners for years. The dog is remarkable, Zenkar reported to his commanders. He can detect the creature's presence through solid rock. He led us to 3 major feeding organs that we were able to destroy. Rex seemed to understand that he was helping save lives. When Zephyrian civilians were trapped by the creature's tentacles, Rex would guide rescue teams to their exact location. The dog's protective instincts extended beyond his human companions to include the aliens he was helping to save. Dr. Lisa Carter was coordinating the scientific effort from the Endeavor. She had teams of dogs and handlers working with Zephyrian scientists to map the creature's entire underground network. The devourer is like a massive tree, she explained to Admiral Thompson. It has a central trunk that goes down to the planet's core, with branches spreading out in all directions. If we can locate and destroy the main trunk, the whole creature should die. But finding the main trunk was proving difficult. The creature's underground network was so complex that even the most advanced Zephyrian scanners couldn't map it completely. They needed something with senses that could penetrate deeper than any machine. That's when Luna, a golden retriever from the Discovery, made the most important discovery of the battle. Luna had been working with Dr. Watson to track the creature's chemical signals when she suddenly became very excited about something deep underground. She's found something big, Dr. Watson reported. Luna is acting like she's detected the mother lode. She won't stop digging at this spot. Jake ordered immediate deep scans of Luna's location. What they found was the creature's heart, a massive organ the size of a city that pumped nutrients throughout the devourer's body. It was buried so deep that no scanner had detected it, but Luna's incredible sense of smell had found it through miles of rock and soil. That's our target, Admiral Thompson announced. All ships, focus your weapons on these coordinates. We're going to cut the heart out of this monster. But the verdant devourer was not going to die easily. As the combined fleet prepared to attack its heart, the creature launched a desperate counterattack. Hundreds of tentacles erupted from the ground around the human and Zephyrian positions, trying to destroy the forces that threatened its existence. In the chaos of battle, it was the dogs who made the difference. They could sense the tentacles before they broke through the ground, giving soldiers precious seconds to dodge or fight back. Buddy, the small golden retriever who had terrified the Zephyrians during the first video call, saved an entire Zephyrian command post by barking a warning just before a massive tentacle would have crushed it. "The creatures are protecting us," Veltar said in wonder as he watched Buddy help wounded Zephyrian soldiers. "They risked their own lives to save ours. How could we have thought they were monsters?" The final assault on the Devourer's heart required everything both species had to offer. Human weapons and Zephyrian technology combined to drill through miles of rock and alien flesh. The dogs guided the attack, helping target the creature's most vulnerable spots. When the heart was finally destroyed, the Verdant Devourer's death cry shook the entire planet. Tentacles collapsed, underground networks withered, and the invasive plants that had been choking the world's agriculture simply died. The battle was over, but the cost had been enormous. 30% of the Zephyrian planet was destroyed, and millions of aliens were homeless. But they were alive, and they had new friends who had helped save them. Ambassador Veltar stood in the ruins of his capital city, holding a small beagle puppy that had been orphaned during the battle. The puppy, who the humans had named Hope, licked the alien's face with obvious affection. "We were so wrong about these creatures," Veltar said to Jake. "They are not monsters. They are heroes." Jake smiled as he watched Zephyrian children playing with puppies in the refugee camps. "They're just good dogs doing what good dogs do. They protect the people they love." The Galactic Council officially recognized the Human-Zephyrian Alliance as a model for interspecies cooperation. The surviving Zephyrians were invited to join human colonies, and many accepted. The galaxy's most feared monsters had become symbols of friendship and protection. Years later, when new species joined the galactic community, they were often surprised to learn that humans traveled with creatures that looked like predators, but acted like angels. The dogs had no idea they had saved the galaxy. They were just happy to be good dogs.